You guys are live.
Thank you everyone for joining. We'll be starting in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Well, my clock says we're at 6:03, so we can get started slowly and allow others to join as they can. I wanted to welcome you to our public meeting tonight. My name is Laura McNeil. I'm the Freight Program Manager at DDOT. And before we launch into the meeting and do full introductions, I want to start with a few housekeeping items.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks everyone again for joining. I'm going to go through some of the basic controls to explain the virtual platform. First, this meeting is open as required by DC Code 2578 and is being recorded. The video will be shared on the DDOT YouTube channel within 7 days. Also, this is being live streamed through DDOT's Facebook page. If you do not want your voice recorded, please do not speak. Instead, enter your questions or comments in the Q&A box, which will be reviewing after the presentation. If you need technical support during the meeting, please call 202-923-5946. For those that are new to the WebEx platform, I'm sure many of you are not, but all participants are muted and you cannot unmute yourself. If you'd like to speak during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, you will be unmuted. Please use the raise hand feature as shown at the bottom center of your screen. Closed caption is available if needed. Please click on the CC icon in the lower left corner of your window. If you're using the WebEx mobile application and would like closed caption, please click on the 3-dot icon. Scroll down and select closed caption and make sure the toggle switch is blue. Your video camera is off by default and you will not be able to share video. As I already mentioned, during the Q&A portion, you'll be able to use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak. Click on the raise hand icon on the bottom center or press Control-Shift-R keys on your keyboard. If you join via browser or mobile app, click the 3-dot icon and select raise hand. If you dial by phone, press *3 to raise your hand function. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the 3-dot icon in the bottom right side of your WebEx window and select Q&A. A new panel will appear in the Ask video. Select all panelists and click in the text box to type your question and press the Enter key to submit. If you join via browser or mobile app, click on the Q&A or question mark icon to access the Q&A. All questions will be answered after the presentation.
During the presentation, we will also be hosting polling using the Poll Everywhere or Poll EV platform. To log in, you can join us via text or web browser. To join via text, text NIC A583 to 22333, or type into your browser http://pollev.com/home and the ID NIC A583. The screen will appear black until a poll question is enabled, and a screen name is optional. Please note all of the questions that we asked during the presentation today will also be available via a survey that's available after the presentation. So let's start with a test question. So the instructions are shown at the top of the screen, and also in the chat, there's a link to join. And so the question is, which ward do you reside in? So go ahead and log in on whichever platform is easiest for you. And you can click the ward that you reside in. Great. I see a couple answers trickling in. We'll give people about 20 more seconds to log in. And this is just a test question, so no worries if you're still logging in. Great. We'll head back to Laura for the team introduction.
Thanks, Kyla. So in today's meeting, you'll be hearing from me, Laura McNeil, Freight Program Manager at DDOT, as well as my colleague Florence Dwyer at DDOT, as well as Adrian Emile, who works for Kimley Horn, and was our consultant on this project, and Kyla Desai, also from Kimley Horn, as well as Clay Barnes, who is representing Cambridge Systematics, also a consultant on this project, and Jack Glodek from Cambridge Systematics. So we'll be taking turns across the presenting screens as we provide these updates. Which leads us into the visual and the virtual tools that we just went through, and we'll be leading into what the DC or the district freight plan is and how freight moves within and around the district today, as well as the plan updates visions, goals, performance measures, a discussion of freight networks, and throughout, and especially at the end, opportunities to provide input. So what is the DDOT, the district, the DC freight plan? Well, it is required by federal law, and it is used to guide and prioritize investments in freight-related activities. And it's updated every 4 years to reflect the evolving needs of the district. And the district state freight plan builds on national and regional plans. It's guided by our long-term transportation plan called Move DC. And it also integrates and builds on other district plans, goals, and priorities, including the DC Comprehensive Plan, Sustainable 2.0, our Curbside Management Study, and the State Rail Plan.
Thanks, Laura. So now that we know what the freight plan is, how does it affect you? So the freight plan helps to guide how we prioritize when, where, and how we will invest in freight-related transportation improvements. So freight-related transportation improvements and investments include things related to safety between freight and other modes and efficiency of goods movement.
Florence, and now we're going to spend a minute just talking about the schedule and where we're at. The project team recently completed a peer review, which is just looking at other cities, what they're doing with their freight plan to see what ideas they may bring. A draft of the vision and network updates will be shared during this presentation, and we would like your feedback on. We're midway through the project, and based on feedback we received today, along with other stakeholders, we'll be working on finalizing the needs and issues along with the investment and freight plans. Please note we do have another public meeting coming towards the end of the year. We will be presenting recommendations and the final plan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Clay Barnes of Cambridge Systematics, and I'm going to talk to you about our existing freight conditions in the district. So when we look at freight, we look at how our commodities, how our goods moving, whether they be outbound, inbound, or within the district. Total flows will increase about 38% by tonnage and over 100% by value from 2017 to 2050 in the district. You'll notice in the graphic that in terms of tons, we're seeing more inbound movement of freight in the district, and this is because the district is considered more of a consumer market, unlike states like California, which is exporting vegetables both in the States and out of the country. DC is a consumer market, and so these numbers reflect that. Next slide. We have another poll for you, and this one is, what are the ways that you interact with freight? I've talked a little bit about what we're seeing in the district, and again, you'll go to that link, pollev.com/home. The ID is NICKA583. And the options we have here are grocery delivery, e-commerce, retail purchase at stores, eating out at restaurants and bars, congestion, truck traffic on local streets, trucks blocking traffic lanes, such as bike, bus, and vehicle, and other. And if you do choose other, though I'm not seeing that right now, please put what option isn't provided in the chat. So we're seeing a lot of the trucks blocking traffic lanes. It's the big one. And I think we can, oh, e-commerce. E-commerce ekes out a tie with trucks blocking traffic lanes. All right. How freight moves through the district. The district is compact, unlike states. It has to do a state freight plan, but it is an urban environment in totality. It is unique for a state freight plan. The majority of freight movement is local versus regional for that reason. When we look at the kinds of movements, we're seeing small truck van delivery and commercial services primarily throughout the district. Next slide. When we look at the mode share, unsurprisingly, almost 90% of commodities are moving by truck. We saw that in the poll that was just taken. And it makes sense because if you look at the other modes, such as air, there are no airports within the district proper. It's serviced by airports that are outside of the district boundaries. And then there are no ports, and the rail lines are not, the intermodals are not within the district, the intermodal stations for freight. You'll see that followed by truck, we have pipeline. Now that is, that's really petroleum products because there are no refineries in the district, petroleum products moving directly into commercial locations, and then also utilities, natural gas utilities to power offices and residences. Next slide. We have had some industry stakeholder outreach, and in that outreach, which is ongoing, we saw some priorities that came up: safety, travel time, reliability, cost. And when we asked industry stakeholders, freight industry stakeholders, most challenging roadway segments were the site access and curbside the places of actual delivery, that last 50 feet or last mile of delivery. And that's not surprising given that, again, this is an urban environment for a state freight plan, followed by local roads, interstates, and then arterial. So those are, you know, the roads leading to getting you to the curbside, all those roads, you know, those larger roads, branching out. Next slide.
So in case if you're joining us, in case if you're joining us a few minutes late, we're going to ask another poll question. You can join via text or browser. The instructions will also be on the next slide. So I'll switch to the next slide, and Clay, you can take us through the poll question.
Sure. So I shared with you our industry stakeholder priorities, and we want to ask you now about yours. Which of the following is important to you? We have roadway safety, emissions and environment, curbside parking and delivery, reliability of delivery, consumer cost, innovations and pilot programs, the condition of the assets, such as pavement, bridge, and other infrastructure. And if there's something that we're not listing here, we have an other category which you can also choose, but please let us know in the chat if you choose that one. We have a couple answers so far, and it looks like roadway safety has 2 votes and curbside parking and delivery has 1. Give folks a minute. Again, that website is poloev.com/home, and the ID is N as in Nick, ICKA 583. We have a message in the chat that says folks would like to choose more than one, but the poll isn't allowing that. If you want to put your choice in the chat, you could also do that as well. If there was something from before. We have another poll. What challenges do you experience with freight? This is more a open question. We ask that you type your response and please use appropriate language when submitting responses. What challenges do you experience with freight? So for Kristen, this is another opportunity. You might want to let us know about that. Okay, we have double parking in travel lanes. There's a lot of vying for space among the different road users, including pedestrians, bicycles, trucks, interactions with bikes and peds. Trucks are not following truck routes. Size of trucks are too large, unsafe driving behavior, and blocking crosswalks and bike lanes. I'm seeing clear communication about the truck routes and enforcement of that, and then the interactions with other road users. Another one, interactions, especially when vehicles are parked in bike lanes. This is good. Thank you for your feedback. This is really helpful to us.
So hello everyone, this is Jack Glodek. So as part of this existing conditions analysis, we analyzed e-commerce data from a company called Nielsen IQ, which gave us deliveries per zip code, per month, and per carrier. And when I say carrier, I mean that would be whoever delivers the package. So a company like Amazon, the US Postal Service, FedEx, UPS, etc. E-commerce is becoming a more important variable to analyze in freight plans like this, especially in urban areas, as it's getting more and more popular, especially since the pandemic changed a lot of our shopping habits. It's going to be important to balance the needs of delivery vehicles on these urban roads where there's already a lot of competition for curb space and where trucks making deliveries may impact both freight and people mobility. And I think we saw comments to that effect in some of our previous polling questions. So over the past 2 years, the best month for e-commerce was January 2021, with over 4 million packages delivered within the district. This decreased over the next few months as everyone started getting vaccinated and felt more comfortable doing things in person, like shopping. It stayed constant throughout most of the year, until the holiday season when the numbers went up and then continued to go up throughout all of 2022. So the point to take away here is that e-commerce is here to stay and it's only going to be getting more important as time goes on. Next slide, please. So this is a graph of the breakdown of the carriers that I mentioned before, packages delivered by carrier. The most popular carrier in the district is Amazon, with almost 50% of packages delivered, followed by USPS, the United States Postal Service, with about 20%, and then FedEx and UPS, each with about 12%. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the spatial distribution of where packages were delivered over the past 2 years within the district. In general, the more residential zip codes, such as those north, northwest, and east of downtown, see the most packages delivered, with some of these zip codes seeing over 2.5 million packages and some with even over 8 million. The zip codes in the general vicinity of Howard University, which is just to the west of the label that says Rhode Island Avenue, saw the most packages. And this isn't shown in our map, but in general, Amazon and USPS handle more of the deliveries the further you get from downtown, while FedEx and UPS handle areas closer to downtown. We think Amazon and USPS are more popular for home deliveries, while the others are more popular for office deliveries.
Thank you, Jack. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the freight vision. So most importantly for the vision, we wanted to make sure that the freight system is sustainable, safe, and secure, and that it minimizes negative impacts on historical burdened communities. Also supports the district's economy by helping residents and public-private sectors to flourish. The vision would be supported by upgrading freight-related technology, equipment, and infrastructure. The visioning components of DDOT's freight vision include mobility, management and operations, security, sustainability, safety, and equity. I'm now going to go through a high level of the goals, metrics, and performance measures. For mobility, most importantly, we'll need to improve system reliability, explore new freight strategies such as microhubs, and be able to integrate regional networks along with integrating freight into the planning process for all upcoming projects. For management and operations, we're going to focus on managing the loading zone program and coordinating with regional partners and collecting and evaluating data. For security, well, obviously important to secure the movement of goods and share data with public security agencies. For sustainability, reducing congestion and emissions is key, along with the integration of new technology to alternative fuel corridors. For safety, improving safety for all users, bike ped vehicles, and collecting accurate crash data is key. For equity, reducing negative impacts to disadvantaged communities and addressing historical inequalities from freight movement. Now this slide is an example how goals, metrics, and performance measures all tie together. For this example, the goal being sustainability, the metric would be reducing congestion caused by heavy trucks, and the performance measure would be reviewing interstate congestion by measuring truck time reliability index. I'm now going to jump to another survey question. I think everybody, looking at the attendees, hopefully everyone now understands how to log on. You can use the pollev.com/NICKA583 and you will see this question pop up. So give just a minute. The question is, thinking about freight, rank the goals areas with your most important at top. Click each option and use the up and down arrows that appear to rank, then submit. The options are mobility, sustainability, management and operations, safety, security, and equity. So just give it a minute to see the prioritization. Seems like a theme of safety. Appreciate that. We will definitely take that note as we complete the freight plan. I see a little movement. Give it a few more seconds. I think this is the final. So with safety being on top, management and operations, looks like there's still some movement, sustainability, security, mobility, and then equity. Thank you, everyone who is participating. So obviously, we really appreciate your feedback. There's going to be a survey QR code that will be shared at the end of the meeting. We'll also be putting the survey link in the chat. Please utilize the survey to review any information. There will be some information regarding goals, metrics, and performance measures, and all responses are going to be due by June 23rd, which is approximately 30 days. And now I'm going to transition this to Kyla.
Good evening. So I'm going to transition to some of the freight networks that we have in the district. So as a part of the most recent Move DC update, the district developed 3 modal priority networks, one for buses, bikes, and freight, to support DDOT through their planning processes. These networks were developed based on feedback from a variety of stakeholders and the public. So shown on the map on the right in purple is the Move DC Freight Priority Network, which is also the same as the through truck and bus route network that is published by the district. The segments identified in purple indicate where truck accessibility should be considered in future projects. Separately, as a part of the freight plan, the district is also evaluating their freight funding corridors. These corridors are able to receive federal funding for future projects. Project types can include pavement restoration, technology, microhubs, safety improvements, bridge rehabilitation, and port improvements. The federal government allots a specific amount of lane mileage per state. And so previously, the federal government allotted 75 miles to the district. To orient you to the map on the right, the dark navy blue corridors were the existing DC funding corridors. I will note, this is not the through truck and bus routes map. This is specific to investments. So while there is overlap between the 2 maps, they are different. So looking forward, in this plan update, the federal allotment has increased to 150 lane miles. The district is quite unique because 150 lane miles in the district is a significant amount of our roadway network in comparison to, for example, Virginia. To develop these additional corridors, there was a variety of data sources that were evaluated, including truck volumes, pavement condition indices, land use, and e-commerce data. So to orient you to the map on the right, again, the dark navy blue corridors are the existing funding corridors. The bright purple corridors are the proposed new additions to the funding corridors. And there were a couple of segments that were removed from the funding corridors. So those are shown in red. So again, this is something that we would like to hear from you all. There's a couple opportunities to do that. We'll have a Q&A and discussion at the end of this meeting. Also, the survey has this map in it and space for you to provide your feedback. We want to hear from you. Where are the locations you would like to see freight funding allocated for those future projects? And this doesn't necessarily have to be truck-based, but it could be other freight-related infrastructure and technology.
Thank you, Kyla. We'll now be going through next steps. So common theme, we want your feedback, obviously, on this plan. It's very important to us. So shortly, we'll be opening this up for Q&A. I do see some comments in the chat that maybe we can discuss after the meeting or after the presentation. There is a QR code. You can see someone just paste that into the chat. That would be helpful. So you can click on that to access the survey. The survey does include the polling questions, so you can ignore those and jump to the other questions we have in there. The next steps include integrating public and stakeholder feedback to finalize the vision, goals, and performance measures, and identify needs and issues to finalize the freight plan. Please note there will be a public meeting for the positive truck signing study in the summer of 2023. This is a separate project, although related, which includes assessing DC's existing truck routes and restrictions and study the potential for mandatory truck routes. The date for that public meeting, mark your calendars, it's July 20th.
Adrian, I'm going to flip back to the QR code real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I saw a comment. I'll leave this up for a couple more seconds. Perfect.
All right, we'll be going through another polling question. Again, use pollev.com/NICKA583. The question is, the previous freight plan identified the following as needs and issues. Click each option and use the up and down arrows that appear to rank the most pressing and relevant at the top, and then click submit. The options are competition for space. I think we heard that a little bit already from some of the responses. Truck routes and enforcement, congestion and parking constraints, constrained or aging infrastructure, growing market share of e-commerce deliveries and associated deliveries, climate change, heavy vehicle impacts, intelligent transportation systems technology, ITS. So we'll just give it a couple minutes to see what responses we will be getting. And please use the chat too if there's something else you would like to add. Thank you. Looks like we got some responses. Just give it a little more time. All right, looks like for first place, truck routes and enforcement. The competition for space, so see some movement, constrained or aging infrastructure, ITS, climate change, growing market share of e-commerce deliveries, congestion and parking constraints, and heavy vehicle impacts. Thank you very much for responding to this poll. All right, we're now getting into the Q&A portion. So just a reminder of if you'd like to ask a question, you just need to use the raise your hand feature, which is on the bottom center, or press Control-Shift-R key. If you are on your browser or mobile app, click the three-dot icon and select raise hand. If you dial by phone, dial *3 to use the raise your hand function. If you want to type your question, you can just use the Q&A feature. Click on the three-dot icon on the bottom right side of the WebEx window and select Q&A or question mark icon. In the Ask field, just make sure you select all panelists so we can see your question. If you're using your browser or mobile app, click on the Q&A question mark icon. So if we miss anything that you would like covered, any concerns you would like to share, we're now entering the Q&A portion of the meeting. We're going to try to limit your comments to 3 minutes to give others a chance to speak. If you go over the time limit, we will provide a 1-minute warning to wrap up your thoughts. So I will be able to unmute anyone that has their hand raised. And once I do that, you still have to unmute yourself. So just wanted to mention that in case there's any questions or comments. And again, there is the survey link in the chat if you want to copy and paste that anywhere to take later. So we'll give it a couple minutes to see if there's any questions. Oh, I see a hand raised from Kristen Barden. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Great.
Oh, terrific. Okay, so I run the Business Improvement District in Adams Morgan, and since the pandemic, with the amount of freight that's increased in the neighborhood, and with the streetery space taking up a lot of our curbside space, freight and deliveries has become a real bottleneck. So I'm really interested in like creative solutions to this, and so I'm wondering what kind of like pilot projects might be being discussed or being considered, especially like at the neighborhood level. Because I'd be very interested in exploring all kinds of different options for Adams Morgan to help alleviate some of that that daily congestion and really kind of unsafe activities.
Thank you for your question, Kristen. Laura McNeil, would you like to respond to that?
This might be a tag team effort with my colleague Florence,
Okay.
because we are working on a delivery micro hub feasibility study with the goal to have pilot coming out of that, especially trying to shift deliveries for that last mile to sustainable modes. So Florence, would you like to take it from there?
Sure, I'll add on a little bit. Thank you, Kristen. I know you asked in the chat too, as well, like specifically, like if there's something at the neighborhood level, and I think, you know, any effort would be at the neighborhood level as far as what neighborhood or neighborhoods, that's, you know, to be determined. We're still looking into all of that, what's feasible. So stay tuned, and we will definitely engage with you all on that coming up.
I did see a question in the chat, but I guess first I want to just make sure that question was answered. I don't see Kristen. Oh, I can just unmute you again. Just want to make sure that question, you're okay with that response, Kristen?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Yeah, as I mentioned in the chat, there's an old garage that was, a car mechanic garage that's for sale now, and David Menny, Councilmember Nadeau's office, and I were sort of, brainstorming, oh, well, wouldn't that make a great, like, micro hub for, last mile deliveries, or even last, couple of blocks delivery, with a whole bunch of bicycles or, some sort of small, maybe even golf carts, anyhow, that building's for sale, so somebody would have to purchase it and decide to use it for that. So it's a pipe dream, but certainly anything along those, last mile delivery, micro hub kind of things, I would gladly raise my hand to be a pilot for that. So here in Adams Morgan.
Thank you very much for that feedback. Really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move on to another question. Can you explain specifically what is a funding corridor? Trying to understand what it means to provide feedback on the purple line. So Kyla, would you like to maybe go back to that slide? It might be helpful to talk through that a little more.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it too.
Okay, great.
While we have Kyla showing. It can be a tag team. The freight program has the National Freight Highway Program funding to work with, but in order to use that funding at a specific location, it either has to be a designated interstate on like the National Highway Program, on the national network. There has to be specific designations for the roadways in order to use that funding. This critical urban freight corridor is the technical term for this funding corridor. It has to serve some documented freight related function, not necessarily for trucks only. It could be a freight function that supports a water-based dock or micro hubs, or allocating funding to a roadway redesign that will have, implications for curbside access in a commercial corridor. So there are many different types of freight-related projects that this could go towards. A weigh station, equipment to help enforce vehicle size and weight along arterial roads, not just highways. So there's a range of different projects that this funding could go towards. The question we're hoping to get your input on is, are any of these locations antithetical to freight? Do you have concerns about them being eligible for freight funding? Are there locations that we've overlooked that would be useful to designate as a critical urban freight corridor in order to allow for certain opportunities down the line for investments in infrastructure? Kyle's been doing a lot of research on this as well, so if I've overlooked anything or misspoken, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I guess, Christy, if you'd like to be unmuted, I can unmute you if that response was helpful, or you can put in the chat, also whatever you prefer. Hopefully that was clarified.
Just raised her hand.
Yep, I just unmuted her, so I think you just have to press unmute, Christy, if you
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Great.
now. Great.
Thank you. So I'm attending as a capacity as Commissioner for 6C01. So thank you very much for sending out the survey. I will make sure that's included and sent out to all of our constituents in 6C and those who receive our communications and with our local committee. I was just asking that question specifically to understand from, I guess, our non-technical point of view of like how to provide feedback. And I sorry, this is like all over the place. What I think, judging from the map, there's nothing new in my ANC, but I know there's concerns about how trucks will travel outside of what is being proposed as a funding corridor to receive this federal funding for the things that are listed on that slide. But there's just a serious concern that trucks are not following the truck route map and their routing is sometimes incorrect. And I know it's like, we do have some local deliveries for our grocery stores, for example, but some of the trucks are just coming into the neighborhood at high rates of speed and not following with the truck routes. And also recently I've been receiving communications from my constituents about how the trucks are too large and the weight of what they're carrying is basically shaking their houses and causing cracks in foundations. And I'm just trying to imagine from their point of view, once they receive the survey, basically what they're going to input and trying to get clarity on what those purple lines are for them to respond to. Sorry, that was all over the place.
No, that's fair. And I think that also ties into that separate study that is concurrent, but not the same, about positive truck route signage. And that public meeting is going to be on July 20th. And that will be assessing existing truck routes and restrictions and a framework, potentially, and then that study will come out with a recommendation about whether and how the district should move towards a mandatory truck route framework, and whether the existing framework of routes and restrictions is serving us, what sort of recommendations they would make about removing or adding segments of that. So I think that's the conversation that your constituents might really kind of dig into and relish providing their specific and honestly very welcome input on how it's functioning and how it could improve. For the funding corridor, it's something like for example, if there's a project for bus rapid transit on the corridor, say 8th Street, northeast, southeast, if there's a bus rapid transit project that you know is desired or planned for, maybe that would be an appropriate route to say, hey, you're overlooking that. If we can add freight fund to that, maybe we can do, you know, the catchment basement, sort of, you know, changing the curb lines or additional modifications to make sure that we're incorporating the home deliveries and accommodating them in a way that if we didn't have this money, it might not be possible. So it's sort of thinking like, where are we going to be wanting to have this particular source of funding to increase our options or to address concerns?
Okay, I think that's helpful. And just so I have it clear, the positives truck signage meeting is also just beyond signage. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So the concept of positive truck route signage is basically putting signs where you do want trucks, not just where you don't want trucks. And that would be the foundational step for potentially switching to an enforcement scenario where trucks are required to stay on a frame on the truck route. And regardless of, you know, and are subject to enforcement if they're not, regardless of any restriction signage. In fact, we wouldn't need to put restriction signage up because the enforcement mechanism would be the signs on the truck route. So that's what positive truck route signage is referring to, is this concept of putting up signs where we want trucks to be. Second stage could be moving to that mandatory framework. And that's where we're going to be digging into that larger question of whether the existing routes system works, how it could be improved, and input from the community about where those locations that do or do not work.
Okay, that's helpful. I might have some follow-up questions to fully wrap my head around these things, but this is great. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
And just
Oh,
And
go
just
ahead.
another note in the survey, there are a couple of the questions that we asked well, all of the questions that we asked today are in the survey. And we'll also be sharing those, working collaboratively with the team for the July meeting. So if your constituents want to share information on what's important to them, we'll gladly collect it and we can help to share that with the other team.
Thanks, Kyla. There's another question in the chat from Ronald Kahn. Really quick, let me read that. With dedicated bike lanes along freight corridors, what includes barriers, capacity reductions, is DDOT freight management team aligned with the approval process related to designs and these impacts? So this question, I think, Laura, you would be able to respond to.
Sure. I would say yes, there is internal coordination and communication between projects and yes, and I guess period. There's clear communication and coordination between programs and projects within the agency. So projects along truck routes are conducted and designed in coordination with the freight program.
I don't know, Ron, if that, or Ronald, if that answered your question. I can put you off mute if you'd like to speak.
Hold on.
Up, I think we can hear you.
Oh, you can't?
Yes, I can.
Oh, very good. That was magic. Yeah, it was just a question to what degree. We haven't experienced coordination per the answer at this point. And it must be behind the scenes a little bit more. I'm not denying that happens. It's just not visible from a public input explicit decision-making process. I live along Connecticut Avenue, and maybe that's an exception, or maybe not everyone experiences the same type of a review approval process.
Usually that coordination is internal.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ronald, for your question. Is there any, I'm just looking through the chat to make sure there's nothing. Oh, here we go. We got another question from Janice Kruger. Barracks Row will soon change its bus stop and delivery zones. Are you working with DDOT area on this?
Yes, I do work with, again, that internal coordination is occurring. We have our curbside management division and our transit delivery division both thinking through Barracks Row, and we are coordinating with them on some of those changes. I do know there will be even, I think, some adjustments around Barracks Row for providing additional curbside space for commercial vehicles to try to alleviate some of the double parking seen in that area.
Thank you, Laura. I can unmute you, Janice, if you want to speak anything regarding that comment. If you have any follow-up questions.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Janice. Appreciate it. All right, I think that is all the questions we have in the chat. Maybe just, I don't know, Laura, would you like to close out the meeting?
Sure. Well, I believe it was Christy Kwan who mentioned that it was difficult to see the funding corridor map, and I have added a link into the survey up at the top that has a little bit of in addition to the presentation slides, there is a larger scale funding corridor map that I hope that you can get to. Great. I'm hoping that everyone else has that same adjustment. So thank you for that feedback. And thank you for your time today. We appreciate your time and your input and the opportunity to hear from you and answer questions and provide these updates. This is not the last time you have a chance to provide input, but again, please share with your friends, your neighbors, your constituents. This online survey, it will be up until June 23rd, I believe. And this is a great opportunity to let us know your priorities, any elements or topics or concerns that we haven't already identified, and we will be incorporating that into our plan development and circling back, I guess, in the fall with the recommendations and more developed phase of the plan for your input at that stage. So, and in the meantime, ddot.freight, I'll put our email address in at dc.gov. ddot.freight.dc.gov is the email address where you can reach the freight program. And yes, July 20th is the date that you should save for an evening meeting. I think it's scheduled between 5 and 7 p.m. on the 20th. And we will provide public notice and more notification about that meeting in the coming weeks. But wanted to give you a chance to let you know that that was coming. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach us by email. And I want to thank you again for your time, and my colleagues, Clay and Jack and Florence and Kyla and Adrian. Thank you again for your work on today's meeting.
Thank you all.
Good night.